Hi, Paul Arnold here, sometimes known as Stuttering Professor, and today I want to talk to you about how do you manage multi-agency teams, because increasingly with the differing media choices we have specialist teams looking after different parts of the communication pie. And that is leading to a massive degree of complexity. I was speaking to one CMO once who basically was having a moan about it, said like, I really do not want or not have time to have lunch with every one of my account directors who obviously want to build their relationships. So in other words, how can we create a better whole rather than these individual parts? You know, the thing I'd say, having done a lot of research into this field, because I basically went and interviewed about 30 different agencies and clients about this subject, is you've got to sort the money up front. You've got to be very clear that this is the money that goes to social media, this is the money that's going to ECRM, this is the money that's going to go to the above the line, etc. So therefore people know what is their pot and know that no one is going to take money from that pot, because otherwise you do get sort of mission creep and people trying to steal from each other's pots. You know, someone I spoke to once said about it's a bit like kids in the play pit. You're going to say, Johnny, you're playing with a tractor, and actually, Peter, you are playing with a digger, and don't play with each other's toys. So you've got to make sure there's that clear delineation, which leads to this idea about clear roles and responsibilities. This is what you do that, don't do anything else, and you do that. The other thing about money is, I think actually when there is a bonus pot, the bonus pot is equally shared. So in other words, you set the KPIs for the overall team rather than individual bits. So therefore everyone gets an equal share of coming out of that, rather than you actually having to sort of define separate KPIs along the way. Now, clearly, when I say you share the central pot, there may still be some sort of, relationship between the total amount of hours you do and the amount you get back. But overall, I want everyone to be rewarded for working together rather than to have a KPI bonus system that rewards individuality. Which therefore leads on to the next big thing, which is you've got to create one team. And what you've got to do is you've got to really work really hard to make sure that people see themselves to identify with that team. Because right now, what they're going to have is going to identify with the team of their agency. And actually, you've got to want them to feel that this is a team they really feel powerfully connected to. And that's why you've got to actually, like what I call, develop a charter where there's a clear mission and ambition that's really exciting for everyone. And then you then have a sort of, you have a set of sort of values you want that team to work to. What are the ways of working? And also very critically, what you do is you work out how are we going to deal with the problems that will inevitably come up. So we're already working ahead of what the problem is, so we're free of emotion when we're defining that stuff. And once you've got all that together and you've really got a team which is buzzing together, then you can actually make sure that as such, you are doing what I call symbolic acts of team building. In other words, you're going to make sure that every time, every week, you're going to get everyone together. You're going to encourage the teams to go and work at each other's places. You are going to deliberately create cross-task agency teams and say, look, can we take your guy and your person and push them together and see what they think about this stuff? And actually you've got to go out together. Never underestimate the power of a team meeting and going out together for a meal and just enjoying each other's company. The more we understand each other and we get on with each other, the more we break down those tensions and those problems that sometimes make us sort of be a bit more judgmental about other teams. So pull them together. And frankly, if you get someone on that team who isn't a team player, I think you have every right to call them on that. Say, hey, look, John, you're not being a team player here. I need you to play, and I need you to put this team above exactly what you're doing for the agency. And you know what? If they still tend to resist that and they're still being sort of very competitive and not sharing stuff, I think you have every right to go back to the agency MD and say, hey, look, I've got a problem with John here. And so either John will be pulled into line or else John gets changed out. Not ideal, but we've got to make sure that everyone on the team is a team player. The other big thing is time. Look, developing multi-agency solutions is bound to take more time. So build it in up front. Accept that you're not going to get something through in 3 months. It is going to take 6 months, but it's probably worthwhile doing that. And likewise, you've got to spend time investing in the relationship. Spend time to make sure everyone's working together and doing all that stuff. You know, and I love this idea that we do try to get the agencies working together in the same room. You know, and you know why you've got to constantly keep working? Because you know what? It's a bit like weeds in a garden. If you're not constantly working at that space, you are going to find that the weeds will start to grow back up and agencies will start to become more competitive against each other. And so you've got to keep working it, keep working it, keep working at it. Which therefore means that actually, you know, what you've got to do is that you have got to lead. If you're the client, you must lead it. I don't buy into these BAL models, which is, you know, where you make, you know, one of the agencies become the lead. I think that you're just passing responsibility down. This is your project, this is your team, and ultimately you can't duck that responsibility. And I think you have got to own it. And you've got to be leading it, you know, and sure, it's going to take time. Now, frankly, if you don't think you've got time, and I really respect that many clients don't think they've got time, then I would actually suggest you go back to a single agency model, you know, which actually these days, you know, let's be quite frank, most agencies have got all the talent they need to have in there, and that may be another way of doing that. The other big issue I really want to cover is about a creative lead, because one of the problems we often have is the creative director of one agency really finds it very difficult to criticize the work that's coming out of another agency, and likewise. And therefore, I am actually of the view we have got to make sure we do have a creative head who's overseeing all the work that's being produced. And I therefore think there's no problem with you bringing in your own freelance creative person who is free of the politics of all the individual agencies, who can see it properly and advise. And if they're given some title for that, agencies will have to realize that this is an important point. And often there's some really great freelance talent out there who everyone knows and everyone would respect if they share their point of view. The next thing I think is we've got to be ideas led, particularly if we're doing a multimedia approach, because what we need to do is have the idea that can flow cross-channel, cross-markets, cross-time. And we've got to therefore develop that idea. And only when we've got that idea can we then find ways of how do we execute that through the different media choices that we have. So I really advise to have one brief, that you brief all your agencies together. Now, in my world, which I've done this before, what I do is one brief gets going, all the agencies go away, and all the agencies get a chance of finding the idea. Because I'm sorry, it's not just the big agencies who come with a big idea. You know, I've seen great ideas coming from PR and everything. So actually, let's give everyone an equal chance to come to it. And then what we do is we then have a tabletop meeting. We get all the agencies together, we get all their ideas up on the wall, and we go around and we look at them all. And we look at what works and what doesn't work, and we have a conversation together. And ultimately, the client and the creative lead will become the ultimate arbiters. So in other words, what you do, you go around, you hear everyone's point of view, hear everyone's point of view. You may need to take time out and say, look, you know, this is what we think. We think there are two really powerful ideas, and we'd like all agencies to now go away and focus on delivering work from those two ideas. And let's now see what you bring them all back. And again, you do the same thing again. One of the things I would say, and obviously I'm pumping for a job here, but actually getting someone to help facilitate that works really well, and I've done that quite a few times. And then what you then do is I think you've got to make sure you've got to keep monitoring that all the way through to execution. I've seen so many times of an idea unpicking itself in the final legs of the execution, so make sure you keep tight on that. Now, the other thing I'd say is I am not a great fan of matching luggage, because I think actually then we make a compromise. But what I want you to do is, if you've got a really strong idea, what you then do is, having got the really strong idea, you make sure that is executed in a way that is appropriate for that media, but the idea is still true and you have that germ running through it. That said, there are sometimes you just got to be flexible. If you are someone who's like really tight and everything, you're going to cause problems. So sometimes let it fly. Let that bit go off. You can let that bit disappear off because actually, you know, it's a shopper marketing. The retail, you know, space is very short and small. So you may not be able to put your brand asset into that space. That's fine. Let that things flow. As long as you get 90, 80% right, you know you're batting significantly above average. So I hope that all helps. You know, how can I help? Well, clearly I run loads of team building meetings about bringing people together and looking at the ways of working and identifying, you know, by looking at the brown paper exercise, where are the added value bits? Where are the problem bits? How can we agile the whole process to make it work better? And then I also do loads of workshops on the idea about running those ideas and the execution days. Anyway, if that's of any use for you, please contact me. My details come at the end of this, and good luck with your ideas. Take care. Bye bye.